Okay, so hi everybody, my name is Nina, I'm from Genus. Thank you, Gordon, for the introduction. I will try to keep up with the time because I usually talk fast, so I should be on time. Today we will discuss the changes of the IgG glycome composition. I will give you a brief overview of some of the recent intervention studies that we did in Genus together with our collaborators. And now, after the overview of glycanage and glycans, some of the results were briefly mentioned by Gordon, but I will talk a bit more into detail about each cohort and as well as the aspects of each intervention. When we talk about changing the glycome composition by introducing the lifestyle modifications, we talk about the differences we want to observe in glycan and glycan-derived traits. So we talk about silylation, galactosylation, corpuscylation, and bisected glycans. We want to see the changes that impact IgG inflammatory potential, and ideally to see the intervention outcome as the shift towards the more anti-inflammatory profile and the overall younger glycome composition. Lifestyle modifications can be various. Introduction of physical exercise, changes of one's diet and nutrition, increase of sleep, decrease of stress levels, changing our lifestyle habits such as smoking or alcohol consumption decrease. All of that can impact our glycan composition. So those all add up to the environmental portion of factors that have effect on IgG. We know that IgG glycans reflect the cumulative impact of both So we know that IgG glycans reflect the cumulative impact of genetics, epigenetics, and the lifestyle. So today I will focus on the studies that we have conducted and were related to either physical exercise or diet and nutrition. And in the first part, I will tell you a bit more about the studies that were related to physical exercise and changes that have occurred in the IgG glycome during and after those interventions. So in one of the first studies, we were observing the impact of the intense physical exercise program in a small group of male athletes in their early 20s. In the intervention group underwent 6 weeks of repeated sprint training program, and both the intervention group and the control group were analyzed before the intervention, 6 weeks post-intervention, 6 weeks right after the intervention, and 6 weeks post-intervention. What is interesting is that the repeated sprint training program induced a significant changes in traditional inflammatory parameters. So the IL-6 and leukocyte levels were increased, but it was not initially reflected in the IgG or plasma glycome. Though after 6 weeks of recovery period, decrease was visible in agalactosylated structures, and increase of degalactosylated structures were observed in the data. So it was concluded that those are anti-inflammatory effects of RST intervention in young male adults. Almost in parallel, we conducted another study that monitored females with a healthy BMI range in their mid-20s. They were undergoing the prolonged intense physical training that was paired with the low energy availability, and intensive weight loss has occurred. So both intervention group and control group were sampled before the intervention, at the end of the intervention, and the 20 weeks after the recovery period, so much longer time. So in the second time point, just after the prolonged intensive physical training, we observed significant changes in the IgG glycome profile of the intervention group. So the IgG glycans have shifted towards the pro-inflammatory profile, monitored with silylated and degalactosylated structures that were significantly decreased, while the agalactosylated structures and structures containing bisecting GLUCNAC were increased. Additionally, B lymphocyte proliferation was suppressed and IgG antibody production was reduced. But after 20 weeks of recovery period, both body weight returned to baseline, as well as all the other parameters, including their IgG glycan profile. Next, we investigated the impact of physical exercise in previously inactive overweight population. The inclusion criteria for this study were high BMI and at least 5 years of a sedentary lifestyle. For most of the participants, even decades. Here they made a big step forward. We had almost 400 overweight participants with their BMI over 30 on average, mostly females in their 50s that have underwent 3 months of exercise protocol in either Nordic walking, cardio, or circular resistance training, lasting 60 minutes twice a week. What we observed were significant increase in all pro-inflammatory profiles, unfortunately. So there are galactosylated, monogalactosylated, acylated, acylated and core fucosylated glycans were increased, as well as we noticed the decrease in monocylated and decylated glycans. Even further, even though those changes did reflect the increased pro-inflammatory IgG potential, that was expected due to the long-lasting physical inactivity in those individuals and their poor lifestyle choices. What was interesting was that we also observed a significant increase in GP9. My colleague Ivan will tell you a bit more about it later, which has a protective cardiovascular role in women. So it kind of highlighted the importance of regular exercise for cardiovascular health. Since the introduction of 3 months of physical activity in previously inactive overweight population did inflict the pro-inflammatory IgG shift, we wanted to examine where it would lead if the exercise intervention could last longer. So next we recruited another 205 overweight participants over the course of 3 years with, again, average BMI over 30, and they were, again, mostly females in their 50s. They underwent a similar, exactly the same protocol, but it lasted 9 months. So it was in Nordic walking. It was in Nordic walking in a cardio or resistance training, again twice a week for 60 minutes. Since the intervention lasted longer, we expected more prominent results. So we were a bit surprised that 9 months of exercise intervention and a project that was lasting over 3 years during the COVID pandemic, at first glance, didn't result with any significant changes. The only significant change was the one visible in the bisected portions of glycans, but the effect was really minimal. Though what is important to mention for all our participants, the anthropological parameters were significantly changed. They were manifested as a decrease in body fat and the increase in muscle percentage, as well as their functional parameters that were also increased, so they were better at doing sports. But on a glycan level, we didn't observe any significant changes within that 9 months, so from the beginning till the end of the intervention. Even the IgG GP9 had the opposite results. So in two groups, it was increased, but in a third group, it was decreased. So we took a look at the derived traits on a quartile level. So much like the first cohort that underwent the exercise intervention that lasted 3 months, here we observed something very similar. So the effects were exhibited as a pro-inflammatory IgG potential in the first trimester, reaching a peak and stabilization during the second trimester, while during the third trimester, derived traits were nominally pointing towards the anti-inflammatory potential of IgG, most likely just returning back to baseline. So lastly, we conducted a cross-sectional study where we recruited athletes that were competing on a professional level, an active population doing structured recreational sports for a longer period of time. So the inclusion criteria was at least 3 years, but many of them did sports, again, for a longer period, over 10 years. And we compared them to recently active individuals that have just started being physically active over the course of 1 year, and to those that were completely inactive. So as expected, glycan age was significantly higher in the competing athletes, so the professional group, and professionals were biologically older on average 7.5 years than their active counterparts, much like this inactive sedentary population. So once again, it confirms it's all about the dose. Too much at a too high intensity and volume, as well as lack of physical activity, has the same negative effect on glycan age when compared to regularly moderately active population. What was also interesting to notice, to observe, is that females were biologically younger for almost 10 years when compared to their inactive counterparts. So active females compared to the inactive females were 10 years younger. So it again underlies the importance of moderate regular physical activities in everyday life. But it is said that six-packs are made in kitchens, so now I will move to the second part of the talk that will be focused on studies related to dietary interventions and the impact of weight loss on IgG glycome. It is already known that increase of percentage of body fat is associated with the pro-inflammatory IgG profile. So in this study, we had a middle age group of mostly women with a very high BMI, so around on average 48, that had a two-step intervention. In the first part of the intervention, 8 participants were placed on a low-calorie diet, so they consumed 900 calories per day for 3 weeks, which resulted in a significant decrease in levels of IgG and glycans with bisecting GLUCNAC, and in indicating a decreased pro-inflammatory profile of IgG. Those are the bisecting GLUCNAC levels are usually associated with higher levels in aging and inflammatory conditions. The following step was the bariatric surgery for the 37 participants, which resulted in an extensive alterations of IgG and glycome that accompanied progressive weight loss and change of body mass index during a one-year follow-up. The most prominent changes included the decrease in agalactosylated and core-fucosylated glycans, as well as increase in degalactosylated and monogalactosylated glycans that resulted in anti-inflammatory IgG profile. Gordon also mentioned it briefly. So we had 3 IgG and glycan-derived traits that displayed a significant correlation with BMI. So those are agalactosylation, degalactosylation, and high mannose structures. So the abundance of degalactosylated glycans increased with BMI decrease, while the abundance of agalactosylated glycans and high mannose glycans decreased with the weight loss. So it was estimated by the BMI drop. Next, we aimed to replicate the first study. So we had, again, a low-calorie diet followed by the bariatric surgery. In this cohort, it was already observed that dietary restrictions act in a fast manner and they impact plasma and glycosylation. So here we had 2 cohorts that both changed visibly within days. Even though Oxford cohort had implementation of low-calorie diet that lasted 3 weeks, and Dallas cohort had the implementation of low-calorie diet that lasted only 8 days. It was expected and seen that the caloric restriction obviously resulted in the significant decrease of BMI in both cohorts. The most prominent changes of plasma glycan traits did occur in both cohorts, and they included a significant decrease of high-branched 3-galactosylated and 3-sialylated plasma glycans and the increase in low-branched glycan structures. Increased plasma glycan complexity has previously been observed in various inflammatory conditions. So the long-term, which is interesting, in one of the cohorts, we have the long-term post-operative follow-up. So in the Oxford cohort, 12 months post-bariatric surgery, that resulted in a decline in plasma and glycan complexity, and where the low branching structures have increased. This observation was in line with the previous findings of gradual attenuation of obesity that's related with inflammation after the bariatric surgery. Next, we analyzed the IgG glycome from over 900 obese individuals that entered the Diogenes dietary intervention protocol. So the first part of the protocol lasted 8 weeks, and it involved the low-calorie diet protocol, providing only 800 calories per day that lasted for 8 weeks, and it was followed up by 6 months of weight control protocol where participants were distributed to 5 different weight control diets. The most significant alteration of IgG and glycome was present at a second time point, so when the calories were really restricted, and it was presented as a significant decrease of agalactosylated N glycans and the increase of sialylated N glycans. Unfortunately, 6 months of the weight control protocol where participants were distributed to 5 different weight control diets. They were described as a healthy diet with high protein, low glycemic index, high protein, low GI, low protein, high GI, and low protein, low GI, to see what would be the differences. Well, there were not many differences observed, so what we've seen that neither the weight control diets didn't yield any expected results that we were hoping to see following up the low-calorie diet. The only significant result was visible in discrete increase of the bisected N glycans and a slight decrease of sialylated N glycans. Lastly, we ran a small trial study of the effects of prolonged fasting on IgG glycome composition. We recruited 14 healthy males to a controlled fasting program that lasted 6 days, while 12 males were recruited as the healthy controls. Samples were taken at the baseline after the 2nd day, 4th day, 6th day, and 7 days after fasting. Even though this intervention lasted only 6 days, there were visible effects on both IgG glycans and in some plasma glycans. This was just the small initial trial, so we are currently actually looking to get a bit larger study to see whether the changes will be similar to the ones observed in this trial. So to conclude this study's overview, the main takeaways are that at least we know that regular moderate physical activity has the beneficial effect, and those who practice it will have significantly younger glycome. And unfortunately, low-calorie diet regimen impacts IgG glycosylation in the more prominent manner, shifting it towards the anti-inflammatory IgG profile, while regular diets still have different effects. I would also like to acknowledge and thank to all the colleagues from Genos that were part of all of these studies, and our colleagues from Faculty of Pharmacy and Biochemistry in Zagreb and Faculty of Kinesiology, as well as to our international collaborators. Thank you, and I hope you will take away the importance of healthy lifestyle choices and its significant impact on IgG glycome.
Nina made up for my delay, so we have time for questions. Just get the mic.
Very intriguing. Just wondering, have you had a chance to look at whether weight loss induced by GLP-1 agonists has the same effects on glycan composition as you see with other ways of inducing weight loss?
We didn't do that up until now.
So very nice study, really remarkable, this correlation with healthy lifestyle and age, of course. But I would like to, you probably see this coming, challenge the notion that you call these antibodies, these profiles, anti-inflammatory, because it really matters the context of how you look at this. Because these antibodies are really highly active, both in terms of Fc receptor potential, also complement activity. So if it's an autoantibody, this is a very potent antibody and could cause a lot of inflammation. But if it's a protective antibody against a bacteria or virus, it can protect you quite well, but also depending on the context. So I would change the name anti-inflammatory because it's really dependent on the context.
Sorry, no, I was just.
Well, it was just a comment.
It was just a comment, yeah.
We discussed it a lot yesterday.
Yeah.
Hey, really nice work. I was just wondering, because working with people who may have difficulty to control for a lot of variables. So you first showed the analysis on physical activity, and then you showed on nutrition. I was thinking if you can control the two separately, because I was wondering, someone that starts exercising more, maybe they will also change their diet, and then in the end we're seeing changes in the diet and not on the physical activity.
Exactly.
There's a weight control for this?
Yes.
So what we did, we had the questionnaires, and we instructed all of the people undergoing a physical exercise protocols not to change anything in their diet. And this is part of the results that I'm expecting, that we didn't have that significant results, because they still had, they were still overweight, especially the mid-50s females. They were still overweight, and 9 months or 3 months of physical activity cannot counteract for a lifestyle, for decades of wrong life, not wrong, but different lifestyle. So yeah, we were thinking about getting into the study that would check both for the nutrition and the exercise, but we still haven't come up on a good cohort. If you perhaps know any cohort that has such kind of parameters, we would be very excited to run glycans on them.
Thank you very much.